Today we turn the tiny paper shell into a 1 to 200 scale tea pavilion, complete with 1500 hand-cut roof shingles and silk paper doors. Stay with me for every step from the paper model to the finished pavilion. I start by making the tokonoma. This is an alcove found on all traditional tea pavilions and it is reserved for treasured objects. Next comes the round window or marumado. I start with cutting out the round opening. I've soaked a 0.5 mm timber strip in water so it doesn't split when I bend it. Then I curve it around a metal tube, let it dry, cut it and lock the circle in place with a dot of superglue. Then I glue a tiny piece of silk paper to the inside of the round window alcove, fix the window frame in place and add the mountings. If you're enjoying this so far, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and thank you for staying on. The next step is to frame the alcove in timber before I start working on the roof. The roof style is called irimoya in Japanese and it most resembles Dutch gables. I draw it up on a piece of paper, cut the pieces and glue them together. When all the woodwork is done, it is time to fill the walls with plaster. I use ordinary fine wall filler with no additives for this, because it is designed to be easily sanded so it scrapes off without too much effort to reveal the wood structure beneath. With the walls cleaned up, it's time to stain the timbers. I use matte acrylic artist paint rather than the specialized model builder stuff because it's cheaper and I get it in bigger tubes. I don't have to be super accurate when painting the timbers because the paint only sits on the surface of the filler, so I easily scrape off the excess later, making crisp straight lines. The walls are done, so now it's time to tackle the roof. The first step is to cut some 0.5mm strips of plywood to make the battens at the bottom edge of the roof. This is to lift the first row of shingles so that they have the same angle as the next course of tiles above it. I'm using the shingles that I made in the first video, but after 3 or 4 courses it becomes apparent that the wood is too thick. So I rip them off, adjust my planer, make some new, thinner wood shavings and start over. Attempt number 2 goes much better. Laying wood shingles in this tiny scale is a bit different than working with clay because as the wood soaks up the moisture in the glue they swell, and between each course I have to carefully squeeze them down. This is normally not a problem, but every so often they stick to the toothpick and I end up ripping a whole course off instead. That's why this tiny roof, even though it only has 150 tiles give or take, took me almost a week to make. Anyway, now that it's finished, it's time to add the final details to the small gables, or hafu as they are called. These often come with elaborate carvings, but as this is a more simple style pavilion, I've settled for a thin vertical grille covered with straight barge boards. For this I'm using a 0.4mm aircraft grade triple layered birch plywood. This is a fantastic material. Bought a whole sheet that will probably last for the rest of my life. Now that the roof and walls are done, it's time to make the last and most iconic bits. The rice paper doors and windows, which are so typical for Japanese architecture. There are 7 panels in total on this pavilion, and I've drawn the first 4 onto a bit of silk paper. Then I cut the frame pieces to size and glue them on with precision. I'll make one complete panel first to get the hang of the technique, then I make the other ones together. Once the frame is in place, I make the vertical partition and then I cut the horizontal ones. First the center, then the other 2 in each panel. I have opted for 12 partitions for each panel. This is the smallest number that will give the proper effect of a rice paper door. I make a small jig to easily cut the horizontal mountains to the same length. Once the first 4 panels are done, I glue them in place on the pavilion. as they are meant to be sliding doors, I make the outer two 0.5 millimeter wider so they overlap the inner ones. This concludes the second part of the build. Please join me in the third and final video where we assemble all the pieces and complete the model. Thank you for watching. If you liked the build, tap like and subscribe because I've got plenty more miniatures on the way.